Welcome to Skwat Talks 4. Tonight we're going to talk about circuit training, and today I'm doing a circuit that includes 30 seconds of squatting 225, and I'll follow that up with 30 seconds rest. After that I'm going to do 10 Cossack Squats, and I'll have a minute to do that. Follow that up with 2 minutes of Bulgarian Split Squats. I'll do 10 each leg. And then I'll have 2 minutes to do Kettlebell Windmills with 16 kilograms, and I'll do 10 aside on that as well. And then I'll have a minute rest, and then I'll repeat this 4 times through. So I just finished that. There's 30 seconds rest. I'm kind of shaking out the hips here. And then I'm going to get right into my Cossack Squats. Cossack Squats are one of those, actually, it's a mobility challenge for me, really. It's not a strength exercise, it's a mobility movement for me. I wouldn't say that there's anything particularly challenged necessarily, but you want to be careful of the knees, so that the foot that is extended is something you want to just kind of be resting lightly on the ground with. So I have a minute for that, and then I'm going to be moving into my Bulgarian Split Squats here, body weight. And again, this is another one of those exercises that I don't find to be much of a strength challenge, especially when it's body weight, but it is a mobility challenge. Especially for that hip flexor of the leg that's raised in the back. So it's a hot day in the garage today, so it is something that, you know, I didn't have, my heart rate monitor is not working right now, so I wasn't able to have that heart rate monitor going today, but I'm imagining that probably the heart rate was somewhere in the 70 to 80% range, probably throughout the entire 28 minutes this circuit took. Probably after the first 30 seconds of squatting with 225, my heart rate's probably already certainly above 70%. And I'm not sure how much my heart rate recovers at the end of all of these exercises. So here I am on that second set of 10 with the Bulgarian Split Squats, and I will have about a minute of rest, it looks like, before I'll then be doing my Kettlebell Windmills. So I don't know what your introduction to circuit training was like, but if you are a Gen Xer like me, or if you are a young baby boomer, chances are pretty good that your first experience with circuit training was on a universal machine, which was this big silver contraption that had a shoulder press station, it had a leg press station, it had a low pulley station, it had a lat pull down station, and it also probably had an ab station. And so you'd have 5 guys, is that 5? So you'd have 5 guys on each of those stations. You'd go for like a minute, and then the coach would blow a whistle, and then everybody would switch stations, and then you do the next thing, and you go around, repeat it until you had been through the circuit however many times, and that would be your workout. So probably your PE teacher, or maybe even a sports coach, would be having you do that. That was my introduction to circuit training, and that would have been, you know, in the 80s, I suppose. So here I am doing Kettlebell Windmills, another one of those, not necessarily mobility challenging, but certainly working your mobility exercises. It's a good one for the T-spine, and it's a good one for the hips. It's one of those exercises that I try to include in my training every once in a while. Like, generally speaking, my lower back feels better and my hips feel better if I include this exercise somewhere in the rotation. It's not particularly heavy. 16 kilograms is pretty light, so it's not really, I mean, it's an exercise I've done with 32 kilograms, but I find that 16 kilograms is more than enough as a mobility exercise. So I'm not looking to load this one up necessarily. Sometimes I'll do it with a 24 kilogram kettlebell, but most of the time I'll just stick with 16 kilograms and just go at it. So I'll finish this as the second set of 10 with those windmills, and then I'll have, looks to be about a minute and 20 seconds left to rest, and then I'll get started on the second time through this circuit. I do speed up the tempo of the video here shortly, so we don't have to just sit around and watch me rest. Yeah, so it's sped up, I think, 3 times now, 3 times speed. So circuit training's been around for many years. I think there's a workout in the 50s by 2 authors, Morgan and Adamson, I guess. And I think I have that book somewhere. I don't know where it is, but originally it was meant to be kind of a combination of both strength training and aerobic work. And you know, as such, it's not bad, but I think most people that are looking to have both at the same time, you know, there's going to be a compromise. It's not doing either one particularly well. So if you read Mel Siff has a section in his book Super Training. It's like 12 pages on circuit training, and he broadens the definition of circuit training a little bit, whereas in traditional circuit training it's just continually moving from station to station. Mel Siff basically broadens that definition, and you can include rest intervals, you can change the loads, you can create specialized circuits for different things. So among the circuits he lists are cardiovascular circuits, strength circuits, plyo circuits, restoration circuits, flexibility circuits, upper body circuits, lower body circuits, isometric circuits, mixed circuits. So he gives a lot of different ideas for being flexible as far as load, as far as time, as far as rest, to kind of expand the scope of what circuit training is and what you can do with it. And so, you know, in my own training, I try to do the things that I don't necessarily get into my training on a regular basis, the things I want to get in but have a difficult time getting in. In that way, it's time efficient, and so that's why I use it in my training. I do like the cardio component, even though I realize it's not probably as good as traditional aerobic exercises or modalities, but it's something that I enjoy doing. So so I'll include it a lot in my training for those things. If I'm working with athletes, for example, when I was working with swimmers, I would include circuit training often because it was easy to organize and it was easy to get kids on task and stay on task with an interval. And I could specialize those circuits so that, for example, with my swimmers, if we really needed to work on T-spine, I might have them doing, for example, bent over laterals, and then maybe they're doing some face pulls, and then maybe they're doing T-spine flexibility work, and then maybe they're doing some rows and maybe some pull-ups. And so you can specialize the circuit to target specific needs. And so that was one reason that I would use it often with the kids that I was working with. There are disadvantages, of course, with working with circuits. So if it's not organized correctly, kids might rush through things. And what you don't want is people getting sloppy with their reps. And I think it's really easy to do that, especially when things are timed. I think we all know that in Metcons, for example, it's not uncommon to see people's form really deteriorate throughout the course of a workout. I think if you are careful about your work to rest ratios there, if you're careful about proficiency in a particular exercise, then those aren't things that you don't have to worry about as much, but they are things that you should be considering. It's difficult to change loads mid-workout. For example, in this particular circuit that I'm doing, it would be very difficult if I was trying to add or subtract weight or change the weight on the squat from rotation to rotation. I think you could do it, but you'd have to make sure, again, you'd have to be careful about your rest intervals, and you would have to figure that in. Sometimes in a circuit there can be bottlenecks, so if you're working with a bunch of athletes and they're working through a circuit, it's not uncommon to have one particular exercise that seems to take longer than what you figured. So if that's the case, or if you don't have enough of a particular piece of equipment for a large group, sometimes that can be the bottleneck in a circuit. So that's something to think about. Tailoring a circuit for individual needs might be difficult. So if one athlete doesn't need a particular exercise whereas others do, that can be difficult. And getting the components right in a circuit is difficult. If you're working with yourself, only with yourself, for example, I know what I need. I know how long it takes me to do a particular set. I know how long it's going to take me, for example, to do Bulgarian Split Squats, for example. I know that that's probably going to take me somewhere around a minute. I don't want to rush it, so I give myself 2 minutes. If you're working with other people, that might not necessarily be the case. So getting those components right might be difficult if you're working with a very diverse group of kids. All right, I think I'm about moving into my last exercise of this particular circuit, which is, again, Kettlebell Windmills. So, if you have any questions or comments about circuit training or squats in general, let me know, and we'll try to hit those on the next installment of Skwat Talks. Thanks for stopping by.